Good morning, friends. Welcome to episode 38 of the Volpe Creates show for Wednesday, July 15th, 2026. I'm Chris, and I'm here. We did not have an episode yesterday, and I'm a little brain dead this morning. Yesterday I was in the ER with my friend until about 5 a.m. In the morning, and so did not get a chance to do an episode yesterday. Hey, Pumpkin. But that's okay. And today, I'm not 100% sure what I want to talk about. I got a couple ideas, but like I said, I'm kind of running on fumes today. So I'm just going to kind of chat about what I'm going to chat about. If Pumpkin here can find a place to sit. She's been all over me. I'm spending the nights at my friend's house helping take care of him. And so I think she's feeling like I'm not around as much as she's used to, and so she's getting very snuggly, very needy. But before we get started, I just want to remind people that we do this every weekday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern time on Twitch. So twitch.tv, /volpecreates. We also post it on my channel on YouTube. So if you miss an episode, you can go ahead and check those out on YouTube. Remember also to leave comments if there's anything you want me to talk about. Spread the word, let folks know. And then also, just be a part of the community. It's fun to be here. We've got GDEX, we've got the sandbox, we've got the Volpe Creates stuff. So lots of ways to be involved, whether you're a gamer, game developer, whatever. So I'm going to continue with our onslaught of just sort of layoffs conversation. This was posted on Games Radar by Scott McCree about an hour ago, so it's hot off the press. And the title is "There are no benefits to being owned by Microsoft," says Doom Dev. They have destroyed immense amounts of value that I don't even think they're aware of. So this is from the article. An id Software developer says there's no benefit to being owned by Microsoft after the Xbox-owned developer faced massive layoffs one day before the launch of the new DLC expansion. Speaking to game developer, the unnamed source at the Doom developer explained. Interesting way to phrase that. Microsoft, don't even wait to see if a product is successful before they get rid of the team. That is very, very Microsoft. I've said this for years. There's lots of conversations and, podcasts and whatever that you could see me on. But Microsoft has this tendency that if something just doesn't work like right away, that they tend to get rid of it. And they don't give time for their products or their initiatives, their communities to breathe in a lot of ways. And I know they're not the only company that does this. Netflix is notorious that they have a 2-season policy where they'll give their new shows 2 seasons to kind of find their footing. And if they don't do it, then they will cancel them. At least that's something. It gives a couple of years to navigate and figure things out. But sometimes even 2 seasons is not enough. Look at, from my perspective, the Star Trek The Next Generation, even though it was relatively popular when it came out as one of the best viewed shows throughout most of its run. But Star Trek The Next Generation, the way that people really think of TNG, really didn't start until season 3. Season 3, 4, 5 were kind of like the really big highlights. 6 and 7 had some great episodes as well. But I think most people view 3, 4, and 5 as like the real big peak of TNG. And so it took a couple seasons for a lot of the characters to kind of find their place, for the writers to begin to really hone in on what the show is about. And you see that with a lot of properties. And so, I totally agree. Microsoft just historically, it's like they're afraid to let something have the time to marinate. And maybe that's just a cultural thing. I've never worked in Microsoft, so, I don't know. But maybe it's just an internal, cultural thing where if something is kind of floundering or not quite successful, that they just cut it, and the people that are sort of responsible for spearheading it, maybe there's some bad reputation or something in that company. I don't know. I mean, you look at some other, I mean, Apple, I was going to use Apple as a comparison, but the thing with Apple is that they tend to like, most of their products tend to be pretty successful from the get-go. But even like look at the Apple Vision Pro, that's more or less, I don't know if you'd call it a failure, but it's definitely not hit off like their other products. But that being said, they're still, supporting it. It feels like they're still trying to figure out what the Vision Pro could be. And, just particularly physical products, hardware products, you get those early adopters in the beginning, depending on what the product is and who the company is and whatever. You get those products in the beginning, or the early adopters will jump on. But it could take 9 to 12 months before the next step of people come in. And the early adopters oftentimes can't, they're not enough to sustain the full product. So you need your early adopters. Sorry, look at something here. You need those early adopters to kind of come in because they can spread the word. But most of the time, they're not going to be enough to cover all of your product development costs, right? So it's like, I get it. It's hard. And I broke down, I just grabbed this chart here. So there's the technology adoption life cycle, which a lot of people reference in these things. And it's got sort of 5 stages. So the first stage is your innovators, and that represents about 2.5% of the product users / purchasers. So those are the people that are like, they want to jump in as quick as they can, get the technology so they can try it out. Then you get into your early adopters, which is about 13.5%. So between those two, you're at 16% of who will theoretically use a product over its life cycle, like the adoption rate. 16% is not a lot, right? So you need to think about, well, if your 16% is the people that are jumping on board, how do you turn them into advocates for your product? And then you have your early majority, which is about 34%. And then you go into your late majority. So your early and late majority at 68%, those are the bulk of who is going to make your purchases within this sort of like window of really good timing. Come on. Pumpkin, our baby just got, here's baby girl. Say hi, sweet bee. But, think about that. You can't wait for... you can't wait for a... Hold on, 1, 2... Sorry, my audio has been getting kind of funky. But you can't wait for, 80% of the people to adopt your product before it's going to be financially viable, right? And I get all that. But if you're cutting off your products, your games, your whatevers, at, the early adopter stage, not even really letting it get to your early majority stage, then it's just, how do you expect anything to be successful? So then after your late majority, you have your laggards, which are 16%. Those are the people, that just, they'll get around to the product when they're forced to doing it, if they ever are. So anyway, okay. Let's see here. Speaking of blah, blah, blah. And had Microsoft waited, it was seen that Doom: The Dark Ages Revelation DLC has netted rave reviews on Steam as one of the top rated games. So yeah, they could have just waited. This I think is what happens when you've got a lot of people who are just making quick financial decisions and they're not really thinking about the roadmap of the products they're making. If somebody from Microsoft who makes these decisions wants to jump on the show and talk about this and correct me, then feel free. But reports say that the studio has seen 136 of its 185 developers laid off by Microsoft in its 5th round of mass layoffs since spending $75 billion to acquire Activision Blizzard. Despite the publisher apparently pushing Bethesda to make Doom games, Xbox saw it fittingly to seem to gut the team of the iconic franchise. Quote, "There are no benefits to being owned by Microsoft," the developer continues. "In fact, they have destroyed immense amounts of value I don't even think they're aware of." And I totally believe this. It is a shame what Microsoft has done to these studios, and Microsoft's not the only one. I mean, there's other platforms, PlayStation, we can talk about as well. We're just mostly talking about Xbox right now because it's such a big change in the news. But you see all these acquisitions. This is what's really wild, right? That these large platforms, they buy these companies because of the properties and because of the talent in the studios. And then they go and they start meddling around with the process. It's like, why buy a company if you're going to start messing around and it's like you don't like what they're doing? Like, why go buy a car and then start complaining about all of the things wrong, and start changing the car? Like, if you're going to spend this much money on something, do the research and understand what the company is about, what the products they're making, how they function. I'm not saying don't do any changes. Like, there are benefits to being acquired by a larger company. You've got a much larger marketing reach, for example. You have access to your benefits coordinators that can provide, really strong benefits like healthcare and all that for people. But it's like they just go in and then they start. It blows them away that this company is working this way or that way. And it's like, did you not do any of your research beforehand? Like, id Software seems like it was doing pretty good. Like, they were owned by Bethesda, so that kind of came along with the deal. But I don't know. All right. Unfortunately, even if you release a good and successful game now, you're still not safe. Doom: The Dark Ages was the biggest launch in id's history when it launched in 2025, and just over a year later, it has reportedly been made a shell of its former self. Yeah, it's just really sad. It's really sad. Meanwhile, Ubisoft is in the process of letting go 51 developers at Ubisoft in Barcelona. I said that the episode before. What is happening? Some ad popped up somewhere about White Castle. Oh my God. No, ads should not be autoplay games radar. What are you doing over here? There really aren't many studios with the legacy of id Software, and the studios revolutionized first-person shooters. Yeah. People don't realize, well, people do, but I think a lot of younger folks don't realize, id Software is responsible in a major way for first-person shooters in the way they are. If you go back and look at Doom 2, Quake, Quake 3 Arena was a big multiplayer deathmatch game. Id Software, just the not only the technology. Look at Doom 3, which was a big jump in sort of graphical fidelity and the Rage engine and whatnot, but just the idea that you could make these sort of fast-paced first-person shooter games, that's what id Software really brought to the table. And then when they brought back the Doom franchise with this sort of new version, hi, Sweets, do you want to get down? I know. There you go. I think she's getting old. She can't sit in my lap as long as she used to. I don't know if she's got some arthritis or something that's bothering her, but anyway. So just wanted to start with that, but then I'm going to kind of end on the back half. I mentioned in a previous one, I just beat Claire Obscure Expedition 33. I'm still working on the platinum for it. It's a long game. There's a ton of content. And I just want to leave people with this thought that there is still amazing stuff being made. And there are still surprises out there when you think that you've seen it all and, the video game industry is falling apart and you're just not going to be able to experience games or whatever the way that you used to when you're a kid, and you're never going to be surprised by new stuff. It's just not true. There are so many good games out there. And then you play something like Claire Obscure, which is easily becoming one of my top games of all time. I used to say Chrono Trigger was my number one game, and now Claire Obscure is giving it a run for the money. Last of Us and Last of Us Part 2 are certainly up there. Cyberpunk is one of my all-time favorite games. There are games that can surprise you. There are experiences, if you open yourself up to them, you get rid of your cynicism, you stop listening to people on the internet, you stop watching, playthroughs ahead of time, and just sit down and really give yourself over to the experience. there's amazing things in there. And sometimes maybe you're not in the place for it. I'm going to talk about this in my Control review, because I just beat Control a little bit ago before I started Clair Obscur. But the first time I played Control, it just didn't click with me. I just didn't really like it. And even like today, I still have some issues with the combat, which I think are one of the reasons why I didn't really click with it. I still find the combat a lot of times to be kind of not frustrating, but like it's a game where I spend a lot of time every time I get into combat just wishing I wasn't in combat anymore, and I was just exploring and seeing all the cool stuff and learning more about the story. But sometimes a game just doesn't click for you right then, right? And so step away from it and go play something else, and then come back to it and give it a try, because you might find that it really does begin to click for you at that point. Like I love Cyberpunk from the first time I played it, even though I played it on PS4 at launch and it was a broken, funky mess. It was awful in many ways, just from a bug standpoint. But I come back to that game like every year or so, and every time I do, it gets better and better. I just feel like the experience is better and better. I'm actually playing Bugsnax right now, which is like a much different game than any of those other games I mentioned, and I'm really enjoying Bugsnax. And the first time I played that, I wasn't super into it, but I'm doing that for Game Club this month. I brought that back out for Game Club, and I'm enjoying Bugsnax a lot more this time. Maybe because I'm coming off of Clair Obscur, which is like was a pretty challenging, like deep, sort of depressing game in a lot of ways, and so Bugsnax is just like a breath of fresh air. But I'm really enjoying that. Like I just, there's so much negativity out there right now. There's so much going on in the world that can make somebody cynical. And so I'm hoping that through me doing these kind of videos and talking to people about these things, that maybe I can just lighten the load a little bit, and you can return to this hobby, which I love, and I think a lot of people love, that I think has a really, really important place in our culture. And I think that video games are doing something as an artistic medium that no other medium can do. They can bring you in. People say immersive all the time. Yeah, of course. But they can bring you into this world and have you interact in a way and connect with characters, and just the ability to make decisions in games is super valuable. But just those moments where you just locked in and you're in that flow state and you're in the experience. It's something special, and we should treat it as such, both as game players, but also as game developers and people that are in leadership positions in the industry. Like, you are stewards of this art form, and it's time to start fucking acting like it. It's ridiculous that all these large companies, these platforms that, again, are making money. Xbox is not suffering. PlayStation is certainly not suffering financially. Like, they are making money. So start treating these products like, and I'm kind of getting a little negative again. Again, I'm also really tired, so a lot of this is just coming off the top of my brains, out of my brain grapes. But I'm just finding so many folks that are in these leadership positions that are not taking their responsibility for this industry seriously, and they are not being good stewards of it. And we're seeing that everywhere, whether it's politics or society or healthcare, whatever. Everybody's in this survival mode right now. Everybody's in this resource scarcity mode right now. And so everybody's clamming up and closing their books, their wallets. And it's just going to ultimately lead to the industry being worse. It's going to lead to more microtransactions and exclusive ultimate editions and all sorts of this BS. And it doesn't have to be this way. I hope that, this is my wish, is that I hope that more of the larger publishers, platforms are going to start taking this seriously, because we are starting to see a lot of folks in the indie space step up and try to do things in a better way, in a positive, more sustainable way. We're trying to do that here at GDEX, at the Sandbox, at the Shiny XP Games Accelerator. Money's very, very tight and it's very difficult, but it's one of those things that we're doing what we can when we can, and oftentimes that's the best we can do. And so, ultimately, I encourage all of you that are in the games industry, that are a part of the either development side or the game playing side, to start going out there and advocating for the industry, but also really speaking positively and expecting folks to be these good stewards of the industry. So just kind of my two thoughts. Apologies if this was kind of like a rambling mess. Like I said, I did not sleep very well last night, and my brain is sort of mush. A lot going on in my personal life that we're trying to navigate. So I hope that you all have a wonderful Wednesday. I really appreciate you being here in the chat, or watching the videos, watching the YouTube. I really appreciate you being good advocates for our industry, and not only expecting more from the industry, but also doing your part to make the industry a better place. So thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. A reminder, we do this every day at 9:30. Also, if you're interested, we do the sandbox.space weekly podcast. We do that every Wednesday at noon Eastern time. And then we also post it on our YouTube, and we have it on our Apple podcast and Spotify podcast, the sandbox.space. That's more for game development in the industry. But please check any of those things out, spread the word. Definitely need, the subscribers and everything. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. Thank you so much, and I will see you hopefully tomorrow in the next video. So take care, everybody.